Thank you so much for that engaging, insightful and well-researched speech. We now move on to our first opposition speaker, Professor Jonathon Haskel. Professor Jonathon Haskel, MBE, teaches economics at Imperial College London, is a member of the Monetary Policy Committee, where he witnessed the after effects of the economic chaos of COVID and the surge in inflation rates. Professor Haskel, you have the ears of the House.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all members. Look, I've had the privilege of being an economist on the Monetary Policy Committee for a long time, for 5 years now. I've been called lots of things, but I've not yet been called a Mad Hatter, so thank you, Kartik. I enjoyed that very much. Let me touch on some of the points that you made, but I want to start as an economist with two key points. The first point is that, in my opinion, international trade can help everyone. Kenya's got coffee, people want to drink Kenyan coffee. Chile's got copper, people want to consume copper. What about Britain? For reasons which are an utter mystery to me, lots of people abroad want to watch 22 grown adults chase a football around some bit of greenery in some random bits of the British Isles. If they want to consume that, that's good for them, and heaven knows it's good for footballers. So the trade is going to benefit everybody. That's my first sort of article of faith. Second, growth is a good thing as well. To grow, a community needs to invest. Now, here's the key thing about investment. Investment needs sacrifice. All of you who are students know this. You're sacrificing current consumption now in order to get some benefits in the future. Now, the sources of investment for these communities is going to be savings, or it's going to be borrowing. But here's the key point. Many poor countries, of course, don't have any savings. The rich world does have lots of savings. To say to poor countries, you're not going to be able to invest and you're not going to be able to grow because you don't have enough savings would be inhuman and cruel. So opening up those countries to international capital flows so that they can take advantage of rich country savings must also be a good thing. So those 2 points, I think, take one to a key conclusion. A world economy with open trade and capital flows is a good thing. Yes, please. I'll come to that. I'll come to that if I may. Thank you. Now, one objection to this conclusion is that it's all completely wrong and trade and openness are just bad. And if that's right, we're all going to become like North Korea. So let me go on to what I think is a firmer objection, which is to say, although the current system is capable of potentially delivering some good things, it's rigged in a way to the disadvantage of the least fortunate. Excuse me. And Kartik, I think that's quite a lot of what you were trying to say. That's how I interpret the motion that the global economy is an imperial one. So let me make a few comments on that. The first comment is this, is that if the developed economies have rigged the whole system to their benefit and to the disbenefit of underdeveloped economies, the developed economies, frankly, have done a terrible job. Surely the most significant advantage of a global economic system have accrued to the most poor people. Between 1990 and 2019, in other words, up until the pandemic, more than 1 billion people, mostly in India and China, were taken out of poverty. Now, Kartik, you rightly said that people, workers in China can be ill-treated, and I absolutely share that. I'm sure things could be better. But nonetheless, just think about 1 billion people being taken out of poverty. If you think about that and convert it into a figure which is a little easier to understand, what that means is just over the course of one day, 130,000 people are taken out of poverty. That carries on day after day after day for 30 years. And that's associated with the accession of these countries to the global economy. So to me, that has to be a good thing. Now, if that even wasn't enough, there are some pretty serious arguments that the opening up of trade has caused major problems not to developing countries, but to developed countries. There's a long literature on the accession of China to the world trading system and the way that that's hollowed out US manufacturing and caused deprivation and so forth amongst US communities as well. I think that point stands. So I find it hard to believe that the current global economy is an imperial one in the sense of being rigged in favor of only rich countries. Yes, please, sorry. Yeah, that's one way of reading that literature. But again, it's not a two-way thing, and it's not the case, as I say, that it's rigged entirely in favour, in my opinion, of just rich countries. Now, all that said, as these questions indicate, the system could hardly be described as being perfect. There are significant distortions in the world economy. One important one is the world oil market. Whether that's imperial or not, I do not know. Another important distortion, I think, is the agricultural market, for which I have to say many developed countries are likely responsible. It's also clear that yeah. Can you say a bit louder? I'm so sorry. No, I'm saying that system is rigged against developing countries. So in that sense, I am with the spirit of the motion in that sense. Now, it's also clear that countries have missed out on growth and prosperity that we've seen. Surely some of that is to do with the fact that some of the institutions in developing countries are unstable. And those are the countries where trade and foreign investment is directly needed, in which case the question is, where does that instability come from? And here, as I was saying earlier on to your nice question, I have some sympathy with the spirit of the motion, because of course there's some evidence that past imperialism has held back current institutions. In the economists' lingo, it's cast a long shadow. So a couple of words about this. Firstly, somebody's asking about the slave trade. To be clear, the slave trade unquestionably wicked and indefensible. No question about that. It's left a legacy of poor institutions today. Research has shown that there's a strong correlation between areas of Africa which were particularly affected by the slave trade and current poor institutions. So I'm not going to seek to defend that for a second. Likewise, there are correlations between natural resource wealth in the past and poor institutions today, likely as a legacy of colonial extractive institutions. All that said, for some other countries, there are some examples where colonialism is associated with some benefits. So in a famous study amongst economists, at least, of Indian railways, for example, the economist Dave Donaldson, finds that railway investment raised incomes, trade, and market integration in British India. Likewise, there's some very striking work on Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, finding that there are higher literacy rates now, the closer the current population is to where Jesuit missionaries were situated. And can I just finish, if you'll forgive me? And that's an amazing, amazing correlation, because the Jesuit missionaries were thrown out of these countries in 1767. So it suggests that maybe those missionaries helped with better education, and that has endured. I'm so sorry. No, I think the correlation is exactly the other way around. If you look at what happened to Indian economic performance from Indian did very well in 1500, started declining enormously around to about 1700. Then the British became involved. I'm not defending the British involvement for one single second, but the decline in Indian economic performance started 200 years before the East India Company got involved. Let me conclude, if I may, because I'm sure I'm running out of time. Two more sentences. The global economy is currently lowering poverty at a rate absolutely unmatched in human history. It was an imperial one in the past, and I don't, as I've tried to answer these questions, I don't seek to defend that legacy. But in my view, it's not an imperial one now. Let me stop there. Thank you very much, everybody.